Welcome, friends. It is Easter Sunday morning, and Christ is risen. In fact, it is Easter Sunday morning, and behold, God is making all things new. A new world order is slowly clicking into its place, and the first ones to experience them are the faithful women making their way to the garden tomb. It's a story you've heard already this morning, but I think we should reiterate it just again. So let's take a moment and turn in our Bibles to Matthew chapter 28. While we're flipping there, let's dismiss our little ones to head back into children's church, make just a little bit more room. So if you're a little one, head back with Miss Megan right there, and she'll collect you right for children's church. And if you're kinder church. If you're an older one with me, you can stand, turn in your Bibles to Matthew 28, and let's read together the Easter story. This new world order is clicking into place. And the very first people to experience it are the faithful women making their way to the tomb. After the Sabbath at dawn on the very first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled it back and sat on the stone. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He is risen, just as he said. Come then and see the place where he lay, and then go quickly and tell his disciples he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." And so the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, yet filled with joy, and they ran to tell his disciples. And suddenly, Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him and clasped his feet and worshiped him. And then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. Just before the sun peaks up, very early on that first day of the week, the women in our story, they make their way to the garden tomb. Life, as they had known it, has suddenly come to a very abrupt stop. Imagine the ladies as they're walking to the tomb in the darkness of that early morning. They're recounting some of the dreadful events that had led them to this particular place. They probably talked about the bitter betrayal, one of their own. The hostile arrest. Was all of that really necessary? The lonely abandonment of the disciples and all of his friends. The rush to judgment. That brutal flogging. The humiliating parade from Pilate's palace all the way up to the Mount of Crucifixion. That ghastly event that hung Jesus to the cross. The heartbreaking end of it all. The women, they make their long trip before the sunrise with their heavy perfumes to give a proper burial to the one they loved and to say a final farewell. And suppose maybe they stayed up all night long preparing and collecting the spices, blending them, and then packing them for transport. They were ready for application. And perhaps they had spent a lot of time anticipating, planning on how they would prepare the body of Jesus. But one thing they didn't really plan for, the removal of the stone. How were they to get access to the body of Jesus? Well, death was, of course, the one thing that they had expected to find when they arrived at the garden tomb. Whatever else they had expected to find, I'm confident of this. They did not anticipate what they found when they arrived. The stone was missing. The grand earthquake, the brilliance of an angel announcing unbelievable news. Whatever they were expecting that morning, it most certainly was not resurrection. Death had put an end to Jesus, that they were sure. But what is this new news, and what does it mean? Of all of the things that could have gone on that day, no one would have begun to imagine this. There was not a category in their minds or in their hearts for Easter resurrection. All of this was really quite new to them. And so their joy mixes with their fear. Trembling and bewildered, the women fled to the tomb. They had an encounter with Jesus, and they were left wondering, what does this all mean? And at least we can say, this has to change everything. How can anything at all be the same? What does it all mean? Excited and overwhelmed, they left. They can't wait to tell the boys the news. And before the sun comes up early that first Easter morning, life on our planet has been permanently altered. I'd like for us to consider this point. The resurrection has put an abrupt and decisive end to life as we humans knew it. For example, now, suddenly, the laws that govern the universe are no longer what we thought they were. They have changed. Up until now, the natural order of things has always been birth gives way to death. The law is now subject to a higher ruling that brings life out of death. In the darkness of crucifixion, human beings have put an end to the author of life, and we lay him quietly in a grave, hoping to forget about the whole thing. But as we planted life in the tomb on Good Friday, that life bursts to newness on Easter Sunday morning. And that changes everything. The universe is no longer what we thought it was. History has now been broken into two separate parts. All of that which took place before the resurrection, and then all that took place after resurrection. Death is on life support. And if death is no longer the ultimate ending of things, all of a sudden, new and exciting possibilities lay out before us just beyond the grave, things that we had never imagined nor considered. Easter changes suddenly what is possible. It changes what we thought was hopeless and defeated and too far gone and unredeemable and too broke to fix. Resurrection changes how we understand life, how we understand death, and this world suddenly is governed by a new order. Dearly beloved, Easter is the most significant thing that has happened to humankind since the creation of the world. Everything that we once understood about possibilities, about life, and the finality and the closure and the certainty of death has kind of been dumped on its head and shaken a little bit because he is risen. If death really was the ultimate ending of things, and if the grave really does speak the last word on our story, then life on earth really does boil down to nothing more than a quest. The human quest for maximum enjoyment and pleasure in the shortest amount of time, because you never know when your end will come. And because you never know when your end will come, and because you have no idea what happens after death and its finality, if all of our since birth ends in the grave, then you might as well enjoy it while you have it. But if our story is true, if Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, if God speaks the last word on our story, then our lives take on a much larger meaning, and death becomes an awakening to a glorious new beginning, so that life suddenly has significance and purpose beyond the fleeting days we have. My existence is no longer lived for my enjoyment and pleasure, but it becomes my enjoyment and my pleasure to live into the life of the one who calls me to resurrection. Paul says very similar things. He explains it this way in the 6th chapter of his book to Romans. He says, you and I were therefore buried with him in our baptism into death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, you and I, we too, are raised to newness of life. New life is ours because he has risen. That, my friends, it changes everything. It changes it. So it's a whole new game for us. It's a brand new life. It's a clean slate. It's a starting over. It's a rebirth. It's literally a recreation. The old life is reduced to ash, which new life grows from and blooms and blossoms and thrives. The old life becomes the soil from which God creates a garden. The implications then of Easter extend far beyond the grave. Resurrection reaches out from eternity right into the here and now where we sit and breathe and sing and worship. The implications of Easter have impact for us today. God does not ask us to live miserably now so that we can be happy in the next life. He invites us into the rich blessing of resurrection provided for us by Easter, but available for us right now, here today. The power of Easter is not simply reserved for us on the occasion of our funeral, not simply a hope for some future event to come someday. The good news that overwhelms the women, what's starting to click for them, what really changes everything for them is that Christ was raised from the dead so that we could now live in brand new life, under new categories, fresh and clean. We begin to experience this new birth and this new creation as we live into the resurrected life of Christ. So that one of the things now about Easter, one of the things about resurrection is that you really can't go back to the dead old ways, and who would want to anyway? Easter puts an end to the life as we once knew it, and it opens us up to fresh new possibilities that we had never imagined, dreamed of, nor considered. Jesus wasn't raised from the dead for us to continue on in this purposeless life of no consequence, pleasure-seeking, held captive by the looming fear of the sudden and unpredictable ending of our own lives. In fact, new creation will not be confined to the restricting limits of the old world order. It's too big to be contained by all of that. So that our previous way of life is then turned to ash, and it does become the soil from which the garden of our new life grows, and we begin to bloom and to flourish and to really live. It's Easter Sunday morning, and behold, God is making all things new. We remember on this day that Jesus left death to rot and decompose in the tomb. On Good Friday, death and Jesus were both buried, but only one came out alive. Suddenly, the world is overrun with unimaginable and endless possibilities. There's majestic expectations, and they're all new dreams that we wouldn't consider dreaming if it wasn't for the newness of resurrection life. Imagine now, the grave will no longer be able to contain that kicking, turning, stirring of life from within it. And soon all of the flexing, grasping, clinging powers of hell that used to put an end to people and held them hostage in death will give way by the simple command of God and give birth to new life. Death can now no more keep its captives hostage than you and I could hold back the sunrise. It's Easter Sunday morning, and God is making all things new. And suddenly we have real hope for new life. Real hope for what's out there for us tomorrow. We have a clean slate, a starting over, a rebirth, a recreation. Not just for us, but also for the people that we care about, and for the nation that we live in, and for the world that we have inherited. I don't know what everybody expected to find when they came to Sunday service today. Much like the ladies who are walking to the tomb, I do know that Easter Sunday and our world once again becomes alive with fresh new possibilities today. I do know that unimagined opportunities await before us, and new beginnings can start today. renewed life, and renewed hope. Desperate situations can find hope today. Your life doesn't end on the sour note of impossibilities, the unfixableness of my circumstance. And those impossible problems, they actually do find their solutions. Probably not as we expected to find them, but exactly how God works all things together for good. Lost people have suddenly been found. Lives are being redeemed, healed, and set free now to bloom and thrive and blossom and flourish. Broken relationships are being restored. Distance that's separated from us, from people that we cared about once, are being bridged, and we're being drawn closer together as we find new life in Christ. That choking grip of sin and death and hell is slipping, and new life stirs from within a pregnant tomb. Today is Easter Sunday, and it's a good day for all of us to start over, so that from the ash of our old world, new life will spring up. The graveyard with its collection of bones has now become a garden full of life, and we wonder the question of the women at the tomb: what does it all mean? Whatever deep regrets and mistakes or choices that we've made in the past, or whatever hurt or trauma or suffering that we have endured to this point, whatever the burden that we've carried for a loved one and the decisions that they have made, or what has happened to them, or the loss or failure that we have let define us for so long. Whatever the hopeless situations that we struggle with, or the dead places in our lives, God can bring new life, new possibilities, new hopes, new answers, new dreams for us. Because it's Easter Sunday, unimaginable and endless possibilities begin to lay out before us. From the ash of our brokenness and the finality of death, life grows and blossoms and flourishes. And new life begets new life. New life begets new life, and that life brings about even more life, all because Christ is risen. He's risen indeed. There's no better time to leave all of that brokenness and ash behind. No better day to drop that case of bones that you've been dragging into your future, that you've let define you. I wonder if we could leave hopelessness and impossibilities in our seats today at church. Just wherever you are, just let it go and just leave it there. Those dead places. And we could turn our backs on. We could rise up with Jesus this morning and step into new resurrection life. I wonder if we could allow that mess to become the soil from which God uses to grow and bloom and thrive in the garden of new creation. And I want to introduce it. I want to invite us to participate in a gesture, in a symbol, in an activity together of stepping into resurrection life, of leaving your seat and making your way down a center aisle like this one. And as you make your way down the center aisle to maybe grab one of these flowers that are here for you, and you pick one up and you say, this maybe is the newness of my own life, the flower of my new garden. And as you're coming down, grab one of these and take it here to the cross. And as a symbol of your stepping out, you could take that flower and plant it in the garden of new life and find your seat. And one of the things that you're welcome to do as you kind of head out from there, is to offer up your new life to Christ, but leave the ash of your old soil. And I promise you this: if this is a statement you want to make, all of that you've been carrying, it won't be waiting for you when you come home. You'll find it's gone, buried in the tomb. You're welcome to come,